But in the good news department, we're moving this whole vehicle as a unit. But we finally gotten to a point where we can attempt to fit these doors. It's bittersweet. We gotta deal with hinges, okay? So there are two kinds of hinges for a Model T, shorties and long ones. I think that on the front doors, it's a short one and then a long one. The long one sticks out further. And on the back doors, where I have no hinge here, it's two short ones. But I don't know that for certain. There's kind of a set on that front door. I've got half a hinge here, and then I've got a hinge and a half on the back here. These are actually stock to this door, so that makes me think that there are two short ones on the back doors just because, well, they're there. I don't know. Now, if you fellas are working on one of these, either a touring, a roadster pickup, any 26, 27 open car, you've already learned two things. The front doors are outrageously expensive and rare. That's why I bothered to try to fix that terrible one, because it's about as good as you're gonna get unless you want to spend the equivalent of like what I spent on the car. So the car was $1,000. A really good set of roadster doors is about $500. That's the best deal I've seen in a while, and I haven't seen that deal in years. Let's go ahead and pretend that you got lucky and you had a car with some doors with it. Well, let's say you peeled off your ducats for a set of roadster doors. Well, double whammy. Ha! The hinges, rare as hen's teeth. Like, they're worth their weight in gold, apparently. They're made out of unobtainium, and I think this is why. I've gotten many doors in my time with half hinges, because someone doesn't have time or patience for a little lubrication to just knock the hinge pin out, so they cut it. And then she gone. I'm out of there. This is my collection of hinges. I know, fellas, some of you guys are like, cool. But some of you guys that are in the know are like, damn, that's a good collection of hinges. Among that collection, I pulled off the dollar bills and bought these quote unquote universal hinges from Speedway. They are universal because they do not claim to fit this car, but they were still $150. And it's a set enough to do two doors in theory. So I guess we'll put the good hinges up front, meaning the new ones, and then see if we can't cobble together enough parts and pieces to, you know, mount the back doors. Oh, there's your difference too, right there. See? Longen, shorten. I think this is driver and passenger front, lower only. But I don't know. If you know, put it in the comments, because somebody needs to know. You guys ever forget that you bought a car and built a whole crappy lean-to to put it in? I have. Anyway, another 2627 topless automobile, and here we are. That's my best reference point. Long hinge on the bottom, short hinge on the top. That door actually fits surprisingly well, so it actually opens. Not a lot to see there, but I can kind of see how that might work. Stay, stay, stay. Sorry. It's actually really nice. Way nicer than what we're working with right now. Now, some of you may be saying I'm not spending my hard-earned ducats on any of that hingery from Speedway Motors or anywhere the hell else. I'm gonna make my own. And to that I say, make a video. I would love to see it, because I've done a little bit of blacksmithery in a former life, and I thought, I'm just gonna make some hinges, man. I tried. It took quite a while. I burned some acetylene, tried to do the bendy, and it turns out that I'm not nearly set up for that kind of intricate blacksmithery around here. But if you guys do it, I want to see it. If this doesn't work out, I guess we'll just weld them shut and you can bow and Luke Duke it.
Dukes of Hazzard style.
Because what we haven't discussed is door latchery, and I'm not ready for all that, because those are another 70 bucks a piece, and math, too much hundreds. So sadly, these doors are gonna have to undergo some further butchery. Right where the hinges go, right yonder, they were originally installed. This is an actual, legit Henry Ford hinge screw. It's a little machine screw. It's a flathead. I do think you can get new ones of these, but on most of my doors, these screws have been broken off and had to be drilled out. So these holes are kind of trash at this point. But the way the door is constructed, there's no way to get to that thing from the inside land. So what we're gonna need to do here, fellas, is cut ourselves an access hole so that we can drill these holes out, and then we can put our door hinges on with machine screws with a nut on the back. Guys, wanna see something crazy? These kind of stink. This hinge was expensive. I guess we can do some lubrication here, but I would expect like happiness, you know? That's not what I'm getting here. I'm not getting happiness. Wow. Like, apparently it's hard for Speedway to make hinges too. Another interesting choice on Speedway's part. These two are recessed. These two are threaded. Now, on a factory hinge, all four, what do you call that? Does anybody know? What's the name of the thing with the, you know, countersunk? Either way, maybe we'll mess with these. I don't know. I'm $1 million in on them, so we may as well give them a shot. They're not going back now. I probably bought these 9 months ago when I thought the car would already be on the road by now, you see. Guys, this hinge is whooped, but it works better than this hinge that's new. Anyhow, short version of the plan is, no matter what hinge we use, is to drill these things out to accept these 1/4 inch machine screws because, well, they fit, you know? Fit the countersink just right. There's not too much wiggle, but there is enough to adjust. Readily available at the hardware store. But now we gotta do some surgery. We gotta open her up to be able to get inside the door. All right, little buddy, here we go. Experiment round 1. Seems to work out just fine. The machine screws are recessed, put nylocks on there, and I can adjust these a little bit. There's a little bit of wiggle room. We'll have to adjust the on the body part, but I need to get the other hinge done exactly the same way, which it turns out I've already been here. So 1/2 of this is stock forward. The other half is a piece of plate. I welded to some chunks of a piece. Potentially this piece. Did I do that? It's not taking much for me to abandon these new hinges because if I can't bend it with one hand, I am going to use this door and it'll just tear the door up, right? It'll just be a big lever and this won't move, but the door will, and we'll break stuff. So there. Hinges are in, but that's about as far as they want to close, so maybe that's normal. Doesn't feel like it, but we'll find out. Whoa. It's interesting because there's no real way to tighten it with the door closed. So if you get the door closed where you want it, you're like, awesome. You can't go in there and tighten it down because, well, door's closed. Okay, well that's already doing strange things. Kind of having to force that guy closed. Spring action door. 3, 2, 1, go. It's kind of crazy though. That's reasonably happy. It just seems that this is binding up in here, which it's pretty rotten, messed up already, but I feel like the front door hinge, this guy wants to come out as much as it can because that's not lining up at all. This one's close, but it could come out as well. Let's do some adjustments. Bam, welcome to the future. So with the situation being what it is, that I need the door to come out that way, I feel like I need to do it in the hinge, and here's why. If I do it on this side, the door's got to push toward the hinge. There's not a lot of room to go. If I waller out the holes in the post right here, well, eventually my nuts just aren't going to fit. I'm not going to be able to tighten these down if it goes too far that away. Could probably do a little bit of both and split the difference, but I'm thinking I can take it out of the hinge, or I'm hoping I can. hoping. So I unbolted the door, so I kind of shifted around to where it wanted to go so we could figure out how we gotta get, make it stay. So this is about as good as this old jalopy is gonna get, which is fine for us. I mean, look at it, for crying out loud. Now if I tighten the hardware down, this is the angle, but if I close it, that's where it wants to be. Time has passed, we're still struggling, it's fine. Trimming the door, I think the short version of what I need to do, for whatever reason I need to do it, is to get the hinge that way on the body pillar. And I don't really know how this would have been done factory, but if I trim out this little section right here, I can put some spacers behind this, and that may solve a lot of my problems. I've been at it about 2.5 hours, but who the hell is counting? I'm not counting. You guys counting? Not counting. This inner bracing was smashed by the tree that hit right here. We're working with junk, and I'm trying to find a happy medium with junk, but this may be it. Which, I mean, dang, you know what I'm saying? We may have just had a Eureka, you great big dummy moment here at Between the Sharks YouTube channel. It's about to extend my hingification for, this thing I've been doing. And then I looked, hinge is closed. You see what I see? Those holes don't line up. So what that means is the distance from the hinge to this and the distance from the hinge to this are different. So if I flip it around, that might actually give us A, more spacing on this side, and B, push the door out on this side. Let's try that. Let's see how this does. I do wonder now if there is a similar tomfoolery happening in the lower hinge. I don't know why I'm looking toward the back. Surrender. All right. It's about as good as we're gonna get. That's how far it wants to swing on its own before it's binding on something. So it'll close without much force, but that's kind of where it wants to be. Maybe we'll fuss with it at some point, but I've had enough of it. It's close enough. It took some shimming. Reversing the hinge did help, but I don't know how much. Let's move over to the driver's side because we got to build some hinges and do all of that razzmatazz to make that side work because I don't have another set of long hinges and the Speedway ones are kind of trash. So let's dive in there and see if we get any other major revealing information because that side was not hit by a tree. It's still built out of a bunch of pieces that never went together, but that side wasn't clobbered, so maybe it'll go better. No, I doubt it. Considering I gave mucho dineros for these things, I wonder if I can make them work. As I said, they stink. If I can't move them by hand, they're gonna bend my 100-year-old doors. So I guess in an attempt to make them work, let's see if we can knock the pins out and find out why they're so bound up from the factory. Oh, and I sprayed this with PB Blaster, and I still can't do it. Should not surprise anyone that this pin is in there and thus bound up. Good gracious. Wow. Believe this to be the same size as our pin, so if it bites on anything, then it's got to go. Okay. Guess we might need to grinder those at some point. We'll see. Yeah, still not good. So, do what I want. Gang, these are 35 bucks a piece, essentially. So that's not no dollars. Better-ish, better enough-ish. We don't know. We don't know. Piece of cake, that's all it took. Sure. Now it works like a hinge. Piece of cake there, fellers. All you gotta do is drill it all out, bend it till it's lined up, and then do some grinding on it. She's good to go. Fellas, I just did the smart kid thing and went out and compared this to the Roadster outside. So I acquired 382 new mosquito bites in the process, but good news, those two holes are about the right spacing. Bad news is they need to be where those black marks are. Swing her around to the pillar side. Those two black marks are kind of what we want for our pillar spacing on the car body. So that's all well and dandy, except this hinge has a jog, which may be more of a Model A style. So it's right where we need to put the holes. Here's what we're working with. This is the pillar side on all of them. This is factory, obviously. And this is a factory long one, but we're not close on anything here. What happens if I flip this around? Ish, but not right. So what I'm doing is lining up the hinge pins, because that's clearly the distance from there is what we need. So clearly we can make these things do, but in doing so, there's some doing to do. So here's what we ended up with. Factory hinge on the top, factory, I think, door whoop-de-doo on the bottom, modified half of a speedway hinge. Clear as mud, but watch this, watch this. Gang, I don't know about you, but on a jalopy such as this, I'm not gonna let door gaps ruin my day. We're gonna see if we can do better, because we can do better, but you know. Guys, I've been tinkering on these doors about an hour or two at a time for the last week. All the doors are in now, so it's an interesting and bizarre situation. It's kind of it's a thing. Let's take a look at what we got. Passenger front door likes living here. It's happy to close, but it doesn't just, but they're all weird. I've definitely noticed with all the doors, the metal piece that is the structure that the hinge bolts to or screwed to originally with machine screws, on all of these doors, they're all bent a little differently. And I think that's an artifact of the hinges seizing and somebody using the door's full leverage to just crank on it and bend everything. They're all bent in unique ways. On these, it got weird in a different way. So if I close this guy, see how far off those welds are? It's almost like a 1/4 inch. I had this door tack welded in, but the hinges, when they're closed, it actually makes the seam toward the front of the car, this side, a whole lot tighter than I anticipated. Don't really know what it was stock. I'm definitely not cutting the back of this body apart and adjusting that a 1/4 inch. It is what it is. I mean, after all, gang, we're building a jalopy here. So if this was a better body or a restoration, or we weren't trying to preserve some of the crappiness of it, I don't even know how I would have approached this differently. There was just so little to work with. So we have a similar thing over on this door. Our welds are just a bit off of where I had, our door fits differently than I had it welded on, which is, not a terrible thing. It just fits further forward. So, but that door is also kind of working. Front door, this one's weird because it's bent differently and these hinges don't completely close. I've messed with it, I fussed with it, I pushed it around. I don't really know what exactly is wrong with it, and I don't think I'm gonna find out. I think we're gonna let it just be a jalopy. Fellas, we have got 4 doors on this vehicle. They are all hinged, they are all working. Not only do they swing open and close, the entire body is pretty solid. Let's take a look at how that kind of came to be. We did chase the entire perimeter with some kind of box steel. It's 3/4 in the back, and then up under this side and over here, I've got 1 inch steel running right under there. Framed out the seat along the top, along the bottom, added a piece of plate down this side, and then in order to reattach the body to, I guess whatever's left of the metal subframe, you see by the door, those pillars, the original sheet metal used to wrap around here tightly onto these things. Well, that kind of connection is long gone. So in addition to kind of squeezing this on here, I took a piece of 1/4 inch rod and then welded it to a brace and then tack welded it to the sheet metal. Not necessarily a super ideal situation, but it does give back the rigidity that the original metal and its wood counterparts used to have. A car like this, we're just trying to get it to be solid again. It's in no way a restoration. In no way. You guys know that. You guys know that. Now I will say, the last one I did, I had sandblasted. It wasn't any better than this sheet metal wise, but I will say, having sandblasted it, welding to the sheet metal and doing all these tack welds was significantly easier. Maybe not a mountain of exciting progress to see in this particular episode, but a significant amount of progress by the end, ladies and gentlemen. So we will see you next time. This thing is back to moving forward, and we have got to keep it cooking that way. Good luck on your projects out there, and we will see you next time on Between the Sharks.